Welcome to Lacey's lineup. Championship weekend. The stage was set and a number one seed fell, but if you only tuned into the second game in the first half, you would have thought the first seeds both fell. But crazy enough, we have a lot to talk about today with these two games. So I love that I brought on my brother, Sean. He's here again today to talk to me. And we have a new guest, Allan. He's a Cowboy fan, so we're both not happy, but we just wish for good football and we're ready to break it all down. So welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start with the first game, Ravens and Chiefs. I just want to throw it out there. Are you guys shocked that the Chiefs pulled off this upset in Baltimore?
Yeah, and I think most of America should be shocked by it. Baltimore was not only number one in the AFC, they were number one in the entire NFL. And from every other game you've seen, they've been dominating their opponents. So to see them come out and basically just have the sloppiest looking offense, the defense needed some adjustments in the first half. They made them in the second half. The defense did. The offense just imploded on themselves. So shocked, yes. I couldn't believe the way that unfolded for Baltimore. I thought that they were the better team all around. I thought that the Chiefs had a good run, but it was going to stop in Baltimore. But, they didn't do it.
If you look at it, too, they went away from their run game. They started when they did their first drive and scored. I mean, Chiefs scored, but they answered pretty quickly. But that was led, even though it was a Zay Flowers touchdown, that was led by Gus Edwards running them down the field. Why do you abandon that?
I don't know what Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, was thinking on that one. I mean, running is like their bread and butter if you looked at it all season. And the fact that they only had 3 runs by running backs the entire game, but even those 3 gave them 17 yards. Why do you get rid of something that works so well and go into some? It's almost like Dallas did with their defense going into zone and moving from their man coverage. It doesn't work, and then that's when you present the problems that you see, like with Lamar, and then the receivers. They get predictable and they backed away from their strength.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that I was shocked. It's hard to be shocked to beat against Patrick Mahomes, and I think that more now than ever. Yeah, definitely what Baltimore could have done on offense. I think they could have made it at least more of an interesting game.
Yeah, I mean, the Gus Bus was taking them all the way to the Super Bowl. And I mean, they even had Hill, and Lamar Jackson is a running quarterback. They only ran the ball on second down 4 times. Is that just because they were down the entire game, so they felt like they had to throw to get back in?
Well, it's going back to I put a lot on Todd Monken on that one. I mean, I don't understand it. It's the way I could break it down is like it seemed like he was doing this out of a total act of desperation, which, I mean, they weren't that far out of hand, but I just don't understand why they would. There's really no logical answer for it. Special note, too, Kansas City is ranked 28th overall on run defense. So it's not that they're afraid of the defense they're facing. I don't get it. It's almost like they got into we have to score now, and the only way to do that is give it to Lamar. He'll figure out what to do. And they abandoned it. And you're right. Like, Gus has been great. I mean, especially after Dobbins going out in the first game, we think that's going to be a big hit for the Ravens. He's shown us all season that that's not as significant as it could have been.
We lost Mitchell.
And Mitchell,
but they had Dalvin Cook. Hill is a huge explosive run, and then Gus Edwards is just Mr. Reliable.
Exactly.
So that's their run is more. Zay Flowers is great, but let's move on from that. You're going into halftime 17-7, still in the game, right? I mean, you've dug a little bit of a hole, but you come out and, I mean, things just start falling apart. Lamar Jackson's fumble, but let's talk about it. Zay Flowers, do you blame him for this loss?
I'll tell you what, right now, I blame him as being a part of this loss. There were a lot of things that went wrong to cause this loss, but he had one unfortunate series of events that will be remembered more than any of the big plays he actually made. So let me break that down. I think we're all aware of that one. So he gets a great pass, big gain pass. Then next thing, puts him in great position. Then the next thing that happens, he decides he feels the need to taunt the defender. which gives them 15 yards in the opposite direction. Coming back from that, they drive it back to where they need to be. He could have just caught the ball, secured the pass, went down. They're going to be on the one. Chances are that team can score if they ran. But he decides to reach out, and sure enough, the same defender that he taunted stops him, coughs up the ball, and it turns into a touchback. So,
Question though, the taunting penalties, do we change that? Does it change the game too
It's
much?
gotten very soft. It really has. Now, I think it was called because of the way he turned the defender over and then spiked the ball right by his head. Like, I think he sold it more and they had to call it. But that's a rookie mistake, right? That's a rookie.
It is. Knowing the rules.
well, and
But
the icing on the cake, too, is the fact that even after he coughed it up, after all of that happened, he goes to the bench and he's so frustrated that he decides to take his bare hand and slam it into a bench and injure himself, too. So those are three unfortunate events that unfolded on the same drive that defined him for that game.
and it's unfortunate because he's had a great season, and I feel like the fans just out of frustration, they're going to put that blame on him, and he's going to have to carry that, which hopefully will make him a better player next year and kind of mature through that. But I just want to know from you guys, though, do you think it was more were you guys more upset with the taunting or the fumble in the end zone?
I think we like to see good, clean football. Even if we're outsiders, we're not watching the Cowboys, we're watching other teams. At least make it a good game. And those stupid penalties, it just kind of takes the fun out of what I think is head-to-head competition. So I think definitely any turnover is going to be more impactful to the game.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to agree with Allan. The taunting is just, he needs to learn discipline, and he's going to learn from that. That's unfortunate, and that's things that need to be cleaned up from an etiquette perspective. And it's just, there's no place for it. But yeah, what hurt the actual outcome of the game more, because they did get back to where they were, but then he fumbles it. And that's when things really got out of hand. It was
because
all
it
downhill.
would have been a 3-point game at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was coming down to it, and that's just where they fell apart. So let's switch gears, though. Let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs. Do you think this is Mahomes taking this game over, or are we going to give credit to a Chiefs defense that we haven't seen play like that all year?
I'll say this. It's just a winning organization. There's more than one component of it. Obviously, Patty Mahomes is Patty Mahomes. The defense stepped up. Everyone stepped up when they needed to. And you come in as an underdog. Everyone thought the Ravens were going to win that, and they ended up winning because all of them were clicking pretty well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Mahomes, he didn't have an all-star performance, in my opinion, but he managed the game perfectly to get them to where they were with that win. If there's anything like that I can say is that Baltimore gave them, the Baltimore offense pretty much was handing them the game, and they capitalized on every single opportunity out there. So they didn't give away presents, basically. That's what Baltimore did. They just accepted them and delivered. So I think it was a well-rounded, like the defense did their part. Obviously they didn't have to work too hard with their weak rush defense because Baltimore removed that themselves. But as far as like from a unit, I think they came in, they were well prepared, they were well disciplined, and they executed the way they needed to get the job done. And the more disciplined team ended up with the victory in that game.
Yeah, and I look at it too. If you see, they did not score but 3 points in the second half. Right? No, they were 3. They held them to 3.
Yeah, the defense shifted at halftime. Baltimore's defense made the adjustments they needed to. They came through, and if you think about it, the whole game, they held Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to 17 points overall. That should be a recipe to win if you look at just that stat. But then that's why you have to keep pointing the finger at Baltimore's offense, because they're the ones that prevented that from being anything more significant for themselves.
Yeah, so is it the headline? Is it Mahomes overcoming, winning on the road, and going back to the Super Bowl? Or is it more Lamar underperforming and not getting there when he clearly was a part of the best team on the AFC side?
I think that's it's gonna say in Baltimore, without a doubt. I think from the rest of the country looking at it, it's gonna be all about Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like they've been in the spotlight all season long. But if I look at it for what it is, and we're looking at how well the Ravens have done and how much of a choke that was. That's just kind of the reality of it.
It's a choke job.
Yep,
It's a
it
choke job.
is. That's what the headline should be in every newspaper to tell the truth of that game.
Yeah, and Lamar, I mean, I still think Lamar will get to the Super Bowl. I can't take away from what he is. I think a lot of teams not wanting him, the whole controversy of him not being paid this year, I think he made his point to where he got the team, but he was at home. And I think Mahomes is just on another level, though. At the end of the day, that guy will compete and he finds a way to win. And I got to give it to Kelsey. I mean, Kelsey had been struggling all year,
He had a great
and he
game.
came through with some passes I
Yeah.
haven't seen him catch in a really long time. Is that the
Yeah,
Taylor
and
Swift effect?
well, I wasn't gonna mention pop stars on this one, but yeah, it could be. But
Well,
I
she's
doubt
been
it. I
there.
think that was just Kelsey. Yeah.
She she's been at other games where he hasn't done much. He stepped it up for a playoff game, and he's a winner, and that's what winners do.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine having, just because we're all Cowboy fans, can you imagine having Mahomes lead our Cowboy team?
I could imagine it.
Yeah.
Do I see it happen? No, but that would be fantastic. I'd take him.
No, and being where we are and watching the team that we do, I feel for Baltimore. You think it's going to be your year, and you got the talent, and you're going up, and you think it's going to be the year, and the playoffs happen, and that's the NFL.
Yeah.
And I have to point it out too, going back to Lamar, like, yeah, he had a fantastic run all the way up into that game, but then I think part of this is going to absolutely be effective to like not utilizing the running game. I mean, for sure. But look at his turn. He had the fumble, which that was a good play defensively, but still he had the fumble. But then what defined it was the way he managed it at the end. Like, if anything reminded me of the Cowboys more, it was that the last opportunity they had to do anything with that game when he just threw that Hail Mary style interception to a tight end in the end zone without, I mean, there were other options around. Or he
Triple
could,
coverage.
yeah,
Triple coverage.
it was a blind throw. It was a terrible decision. And unfortunately for him, I'm not trying to take credit away because I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. I really do. That was just a sign to show that like people are going to know him for that last play and blame him on that too, regardless of the other things.
Yeah, until he wins the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, how many games like with Romo did we see like that? And that's what
And
people
with Dak.
around here. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Dak's still active and playing, but I mean, yeah, that's what we're looking at with Dak right now until something changes.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can have the best regular season, but you're defined by what you do in the postseason and how many rings you can bring home, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially in a championship game, too. I mean, next to the Super Bowl, that's it.
Yeah, us Cowboy fans are just trying to get to the championship game.
I know. What's that like? It's been, 29 years now?
Man, but overall, though, still a good game. I mean, it was fun to watch. It wasn't like a blowout, even though Kansas City controlled that game pretty much the entire time. There was still, if you take back Zay Flowers' fumble, and then they were in scoring position again when he threw that interception. So that's just bad management. But I mean, do we put blame on the coach? I mean, was that the worst kind of preparing for that? Like, you went away from everything that got you there.
I wouldn't put it. Well, go ahead, Allan.
I was going to say, and, head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback, how much power does each one have? I mean, the coordinator gives a play out, and maybe a receiver doesn't execute it, and he puts it in triple coverage or whatever. I think it just depends. I mean, is a quarterback doing everything that a coordinator is telling him to? I think once they're in the pocket, they have a little more freedom than that. They need to read the field and throw it away when to throw it away.
Well, that being said, too, and I think part of it as well, like, I mean, I have to blame it as a collective group, but I still put a lot of blame on the offensive coordinator. Now, Harbaugh has the final decision, but in all honesty, in the heat of a game like that, you're depending on your coordinators to make those calls and get the play in. And then the final standpoint is going to be your quarterback reading the defense and making a switch. But if you make the option not to run, it's hard for me to believe that Lamar actually got up there and made the decision to not run all those times. So if you're making those play calls, that's what handicapped them and led to all these mistakes and dependencies in the passing game, is that absence of a running game. So to me, like, the biggest blame of anyone goes on to, you can say Harbaugh, but I'm going to say it's literally the offensive coordinator in this position.
Yeah, I'm just going to assume Harbaugh was concerned with game management and everything like that. But
Yeah.
then again, we don't know what's going on between those mics, going to the quarterback's helmet.
Right.
I just know as a fan, whatever that was, throw it in the trash, burn it, don't ever use it again. Like, it doesn't work. You do
Yeah.
have Mahomes and Lamar, who I do think, even if a play is called, they're going to change it. And I think they have that leeway too, where Dak Prescott will follow you and do whatever you say.
Yeah, I mean, I would put like Peyton Manning up there too, where he kind of commanded the offense more. But I don't know if Lamar is that type of quarterback. I don't know. I think Dak has games where he's that type of quarterback. Mahomes, we obviously know he's that type of quarterback, and he's got the rings to prove it.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I agree with that. Well, like I said, good game. Chiefs back in the Super Bowl. We'll get to what that is in a little bit, but I'm telling you right now, really not looking forward to a Swift Bowl, and I'm not looking forward to a back-to-back champion. I don't want the Kansas City Chiefs to be the next Patriots, where they're there every single year. But let's
Absolutely.
move on to the second game. And I know you guys all watched this and it was crazy. I mean, deep down, you got to go, as Cowboy fans, you don't want the 49ers there because you don't want them to go ahead in the Super Bowl wins, right? Again, because we're tied with the Cowboys right now. But
Right.
your heart, I mean, Lions kind of were that heartfelt team that you wanted to be there in the end. And they came out explosive. I mean, this was a game of two halves. So let's start with the first half. Was this more Lions offense or bad defense by the 49ers to start this game?
I'm going to have to chime in and say this is all Lions offense was red hot. They had a great scheme. They executed it perfectly. I didn't see anything where I thought the Niners defense was broken. Detroit just came out and executed so well that like it's very hard to defend that. So momentum was on their side. They were obviously fired up, and they should be. They've had such a fantastic, historic season. And the whole country is for the most part, definitely not the people, the Niners fans, but they were all behind them too because it's the Cinderella story that we have right now. And but they knew it. They were fired up. They played with passion. Campbell gives them that. And I can't say that it was the Niners defense at all. The Niners had to make adjustments, that's for sure. But the Detroit running game was phenomenal. And then when that happened, that opens up Goff, takes pressure off him, and he was throwing good passes. They were moving down the field. So in the first half, it was just purely good Lions execution on the offensive side.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, everything was clicking for them. I mean, it was a little premature because you can't count the 49ers. I mean, 27-7 for Cowboys. It's crazy because we had that, right? Like, it's a little too close to home, and we knew our season was over there. It's crazy that they were able to punch back. So let's go to the second half. I mean, we know the first half was all Lions. I mean, the 49ers have been bad in the playoffs this entire time. I mean, they should have lost to the Packers. They were definitely losing to the Lions, but they're finding a way to win, and it's all been in the second half. So is that Shanahan adjustments? Is that where his mastermind comes in? Or do you think the pressure started building on the Lions as they were chipping away?
I think it's a couple things. First off, Shanahan is a very intelligent coach and can make adjustments. Detroit fights hard. They just do, but momentum, I think, started happening. Detroit misses a few catches that were, on the line, and they turned into stops, and that just momentum just changed.
Yeah, I agree with the Shanahan analysis. Like San Francisco has shown they've come back. They even did it against Green Bay as well. Like they have made halftime adjustments. They play a decent first half, sometimes not as well as the other team, which we've seen, but they are smart. They never give up. You have to give that to them because they never hung their heads during that first half. They went into halftime just figuring out how they're going to come back, when they're going to come back and win the game. But what teams need to realize about San Francisco is that you cannot give them any opportunities because they will destroy you on it. And this was a prime example in the second half of Detroit not necessarily doing anything bad right out of the gate until they did. And it was the turnovers. they scored, like San Francisco got it rolling. Because if you think about it, they came out, San Francisco got the ball first. They marched down the field, and I think a lot of us, I know I was thinking like, oh, here it goes. They're just going to start their run. But Detroit still held them to a field goal. So Detroit is still, in my opinion, at this point, like at that point in the game, they are in command of the game still. But then you get to the fourth downs, you get to the fumble, and it's just rapid repeat, like rapid fire for the
Yeah,
Niners.
so
They're
let's
going to
talk
make them
about
eat
that.
alive. Yeah.
I want to hear y'all's opinion. What was more crucial for the Lions in that second half? Was it the Gibbs fumble, or was it the Reynolds fourth down wide open drop?
I think there were a couple of those, but I mean, at the core of this, what we've been saying all season is San Francisco has the most talented roster out there. And I think it's just a few mistakes that happen. You lost a little steam from the first half, and that talent just kind of caught up with you. And San Francisco does what San Francisco does. They had injuries earlier in the season with those 3 losses in a row, but, they're pretty healthy and they were fired up and they overcame a pretty big deficit, which is impressive. But they're just a talented group overall.
So, I mean, I'm going to have to point it out that, going that first, like when they went for it on the fourth down and they didn't get it, and one that, it still hit Reynolds in the hand. So I'm going to have to say, like, you got to make those plays in a championship. But that aside, Niners can march all the way back down. The Ayuk catch, my goodness. The pivotal point where, that the fourth down was what kind of started, I cranked the engine for the 49ers. But the Gibbs fumble on the first play deep in their own territory quickly after that, I think that's what cost them the most, because Christian McCaffrey didn't take any time getting back in the end zone immediately on that one. And then that's when the panic happened. 49ers had matched the rush game on that one. Like they are adjusted to it. Sorry. They knew how to play it better. That's when the Lions started abandoning their rush, which is a no-no, but they couldn't really get anything done because it was predictable now. But having those points that fast, having the game pivot, and then having momentum completely on San Francisco's side, got the crowd, everyone, all that stadium was all about it. They were back in the game, and Detroit just started playing in a shadow. And that's what dwindled them down. They lost that explosiveness they had in the first half because of that one single play turned the tide.
Yeah, it's not just what bad plays happen, it's when and where, and that was just pretty unfortunate. They still had time to come back, I think, but at that point, McCaffrey, San Francisco, they were just fired up.
Yeah. Well, you got to think about it, too. That was also a miscommunication on the handoff as well, because he hit the wrong side.
I think. Yeah. Okay, so let's raise our blood pressure a little bit and talk about what everyone's been screaming about. Dan Campbell already missed it on a fourth down, but instead, like you said, they go down and they go ahead, but they only go up by 3. You get the ball, you're marching down the field, and you're on fourth down again. You just lost a 17-point lead in 8 minutes. The momentum has shifted. You're playing on the road. Why go for it on that fourth down instead of tying the game?
That was a mistake. At the same time, that's the type of decision that Dan's made all through the season that's got them to where they are.
I get that. I do understand that, but there's also a time and place. The first fourth down, you go for it. Like, right. I do get that. Like, that made sense, and he's always going to go for it. But in that moment, you got to put those factors in and realize that we got to stay alive and at least get points on the board.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I mean, it was no different than the Dallas game. He kept going for it. It cost him.
Right, and it cost him the game. He should have learned from that.
Yeah, I agree. But it's hard to put a loss on one player. It's hard to put it on the coach for one decision. I mean, I don't know. There's just too much into it.
Well, the thing that I want to say is my opinion on it. Like, I know statistics and analytics are all in the NFL now, and they're saying, oh, well, if you're at this yardage and whatnot, you go for it. But I don't want people to lean on that. So yeah, Dan, Campbell has literally been aggressive as anything I've ever seen all season. I mean, look at even the Cowboys game, like where they kept going for it for two, like 3 times in a row. Like, at what point do you just take it to a tie? I think this is that kind of position here. You're in a championship game. You're tied. You lost that 17-point lead. Take the points. Kick the field goal. Get the lead back. Get some momentum going back with your team because now you're ahead again. But the other way to look at this, too, we wouldn't be having this conversation as much right now if Reynolds would have caught that pass, which, I mean, it was in the hands. He was open. He missed it. He looked downfield too fast and dropped it. Had he made that catch, they had another set of downs. Who knows what would have happened?
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah, I mean,
we
you're
won't
either
know
the
because he didn't catch it.
hero or, you cost them the game. I do understand that. I just think his emotions can either be great and they ride off of him, or it can cost him, and it has. I mean, it has.
Yeah. I still say take the points.
Yeah, in that specific case, yeah. But you know what? He's going to come back next year and he's going to be aggressive because look at how that team's, trended up the last 3 years. I mean, I think, they could easily be in the Super Bowl next year at the rate they're going. He's going to be aggressive. He may have learned a few lessons I mean, there is such thing as too aggressive, but, it makes for good football and, they're a fun group to watch and his pressers are great. So
yeah, they're young. I mean, and that's another thing too. St. Brown barely saw the ball in the second half.
They covered him well. Yeah, they covered him well. But that's because they started abandoning the run game when they started getting into panic mode. So then the offense becomes more predictable.
Yeah. Exciting game. I mean, I was really rooting for the Lions. I mean, they had my heart. They're a young group. Their journey has been awesome. And I said it on my podcast from the beginning of the weeks. I wouldn't be shocked if the Super Bowl went through Detroit. Like, that's how much they were playing great ball. I mean, Laporta, crazy good. St. Brown, and then they had Gibbs and Montgomery. I mean, they just had weapons everywhere.
But yeah, no, and I remember you and I talking about Lions. I think it was back in like week 6 or so when we had our last cast together. But yeah, you even had them at 1. So look what happened. I mean, they came so close. So yeah, hats off to them. They had an immaculate season. I think they're just going to keep getting better from here, though. So we haven't seen the last of Detroit. This is like a new franchise era for them. So look forward to seeing what they produce in seasons to come.
Yeah, I agree. And they may lose a coordinator here or there. They're obviously pretty good.
Yeah, but their offensive coordinator was supposed to go to the Commanders, and he announced today that he's staying with this team.
Oh, good.
So,
well,
good.
Yeah, that'll be fun to watch next year. Looking forward to it.
Side note, before we finish this, though, because you guys are both Cowboy fans, do you guys see Dan Quinn taking the Seattle job?
I think it would have happened by now, honestly.
I think Dallas is going to keep him. I think at this point,
do we want him to stay?
As long as he forgets the zone and we don't play Green Bay. But I mean, you can't blame it on him too much. I mean, the Cowboys have had an awesome defense, so he had a bad game. I hope we don't see that again, but hopefully he's just like the players learn from that mistake. But
yeah, I don't think that last game helped his resume too much.
And that could be a reason why he's not signed to another team yet.
Yeah, but there was talks if he goes, because they still haven't named it, that Ron Rivera would be the replacement. Thoughts on that? Are we trading old school for old school at this point?
Yeah, well, the Cowboys do that.
I think the game's kind of left them. I mean, Ron Rivera, you're talking about going back to the Bears in the 80s.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been
Carolina
around a long time.
Too.
Yeah, I mean, he's...
Well, you know me, I side note to the Cowboys. I can't ever stop talking about them. I just wanted to hear your take on what your thoughts on that, because that's one of the last ones. But overall, the games this weekend, I mean, 49ers played from behind, both playoff games at home, and they prevailed. So we're looking at 49ers and Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I mean, do you think Chiefs are going to give them a game, or do you think they're going to come in and clean house?
I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that guy I'm just not. I wouldn't be surprised if it's San Francisco year just with their coaching staff and just their level of talent on that team on every side of the ball. You would think that they would win, but I've been wrong on both these last two games. So on paper, I'm saying San Francisco, but if I'm betting money, I'm saying the Chiefs. I just think that they're rolling hot, and again, Patrick Mahomes. It's hard to bet against that guy right now.
Well, it's kind of like how we used to think about Tom Brady. It's like, the
Yep.
Patriots, every time they're in there, it's like, I mean, look at the Atlanta game. Speaking of Dan Quinn,
Yeah.
they
And
were blowing him away, and then he comes back. But Mahomes has that. Like, so that being said, I think this is going to be, and this is mainly coming from just the playoff performance as well from both teams, their comeback abilities, their game management abilities. This is going to be an offensively driven game because neither defense sticks out. San Francisco, in my opinion, has the edge on defense, but
yeah,
they both have so many offensive talents, and I think this is going to be a shootout kind of style game. So I have the Niners actually pulling this one out, though. I feel like it. Like that's who I would rather, and it's nothing against the Chiefs except for the fact that, like, we have seen them. I mean, they've got a great thing going for them. If they win it, they obviously deserve it. But I feel like I would personally rather see the Niners win. I know it's weird hearing that from a Cowboys fan, but just to mix it up. But the Niners have had a great season, and each team deserves to win this. They've made it this far, and they've had a great, like, I mean, Kansas City overcame the biggest deficit in the regular season. I didn't even think they'd be here at all, like not even in the playoffs hardly. But look at what they've accomplished, and they've had the hardest road, like, in basically they've ever had because Mahomes didn't have his home field advantage all the way through this time. So it's going to be a good one, but I still think the Niners are going to find a way.
I think it's going to get interesting because Chiefs defense has stepped up and the 49ers defense looks to be very unorganized. They come through in certain moments, which has helped them. But there was headlines this week that they might bench Chase Young. So they just said that he's been costing them and not doing what he's supposed to do. And so I feel like there's some ripples in that defense right now that I'm not sure if that's going to play a factor in this game. I mean, defense wins championships, right?
Right, it
yeah,
does. But I mean, think about what happened, like we were talking about with the Lions-Niners game. Like, it wasn't that San Francisco's defense was bad. They just didn't have it put together to stop that hot offensive attack. But they made such good halftime adjustments. So don't put that past them. They're going to, if depending, I'm not even going to really predict anything in the first half of this game. I'll tell you that right off the bat. We'll see what happens right out of the gates in the second half. And that's going to show you if the adjustments were made, if need be. We don't know where we're going to be at that point. But, regardless of where they are, Shanahan has proven that he can make the right adjustments at half, and they are never out of that game.
Yeah. And I think one thing, especially Brady era on, we've always been told that defense wins championships, and we definitely saw that with Denver, against Cam Newton. But it seems like defenses get you to championships. Quarterbacks are winning the championship that particular game.
Yeah. And we didn't even talk about that with the 49ers, though. Purdy running.
Yeah, that was unreal.
I mean,
That's
you
a new
want to
dimension
say,
of his
I mean,
offense.
Purdy's got a lot of slack this year, just saying he's only good because of the weapons around him. But you can't put him in a category with Patrick Mahomes, but he's holding his own. Like some of the plays and him extending them and then knowing that he has to get a first. I mean, he might not look good running. It might not look right, but he was running. And those running plays to get that first down is ultimately what won them that game.
Yeah.
He's a competitor. And, when he was without his weapons during the regular season and he got exposed and we were all saying, oh, wow, Brock Purdy is human. Well, he is, but he's developed even more from that. And I've seen a side of him where I'm seeing a really good, like, game management, want to win quarterback. He doesn't make many mistakes. Like, there was a lot of times where he made the right decision, like where he could have forced it, like we've seen other quarterbacks do. I mean, he's playing smarter. He knows what's at hand, and I got to tip the hat to him because he's really impressed me, especially in his later half of the season, going into the postseason for sure.
Yeah, especially with that at that age, what he's done, since he's been starter. I mean, there's no denying his skill level, and I think it's only going to get better. It may be time for him to get paid big, and they're going to lose some talent elsewhere. And I think, they're still going to be a competitor every year that Shanahan's there. So,
Of course, because he tends to make deals that are unbelievable, like
hmm
Christian McCaffrey, right? Like,
Unreal. Yeah.
yep.
it's just crazy. So, but I mean, are we excited about the Super Bowl? Like, is this a game we're getting pumped about, or are we just hoping for good football at this point?
I'm hoping for good football. I'll
Yeah.
just say that.
No one wants to watch a blowout game, and do I want San Francisco to lose? Just the image of Kettle popping off his jersey during that Cowboys game and having that undershirt. I'm like, I want them to lose.
I do.
I
Oh.
just do. No one wants the Chiefs to win. I don't know. I kind of wouldn't mind seeing Patrick Mahomes beat Tom Brady's records. He seems, I don't know, a little more down to earth of a guy. I would like to see him be right there with Tom Brady. So I'm not opposed to the Chiefs winning. I do wish they pull it off. I hope it is a competitive game, but yeah, no one wants a blowout game.
The only thing
Yeah.
with Chiefs winning, though, is we might never not see Taylor Swift again if she takes them
Who
to a
does
Super Bowl.
what team
Yeah,
does
I
she
was
play
going to
for?
mention that, but now that you brought it up, that's true. Yeah, who does she play for?
They're making shirts that actually say "Go Taylor's boyfriend."
Yeah.
Can't say that
That's
I've
bad.
seen those.
That's bad. But all right, so final thoughts, just real quick, since playoffs are done, Super Bowl set. I'm getting emotional because football is nearing the end and we got to wait again to see if it's Cowboys year next year. But just out of all the games played, what team, even if they lost, most impressed you in the playoffs? It could be current or ones that went out.
That's a tough one because there were some that I really think stood out. But in all honesty, I can't believe it, but I'm going to have to say the Chiefs because going back, I kind of mentioned before, they were on the road. They played at home the first one against the Dolphins in freezing temperatures, which they're used to, but still no one likes playing in that one. But I mean, they delivered really good against the Dolphins. That was no contest, really. But Buffalo going next to another cold game when they had home field advantage. We all know how the Bills Mafia is. Buffalo's been playing solid lights out football for the last half of the season. Like they were just on a run. And to come out and get that win was huge. And then going to Baltimore, the number one seed at home for the championship, and playing the best they should have. Like, I mean, the way they executed and got it done, when I had all the doubts of them in the regular season at the beginning, it was just incredible to see how they put that together. I mean, you would have never thought that they were lower ranked than the opponents that they were facing by the way they played. So I say that was the most impressive thing to me.
I would have to go with Green Bay because I did not expect them to be in the playoffs at all. They did what they did to Dallas. They're a very young team, and they hung in there with, San Francisco. I think they impressed me the most. The Chiefs, I'm not surprised about. San Francisco, we all predicted to win the Super Bowl after like game 3. But in Baltimore, they choked. I would have to go with Green Bay just based on their age.
I'm actually going to agree with Allan on this. I think Green Bay too. I mean, I definitely overlooked them. So did the Cowboys. I wanted to play them over Buccaneers, like even too when we ended up getting the second seed. Green Bay was scary to me, or wasn't scary to me, and they came out just fearless. Like you said, the way Cowboys played the 49ers, where most people played the 49ers, they came in, and I think that's a big hats off to Matt LaFleur. I mean, he does a really good job, and they're young. I mean, just like the Lions, they're just not as far as the Lions. They're probably the Lions of next year. But they came in and took no business, and it came down to a bad decision by their, quarterback Love at the end to throw across his body, and that's what cost them a trip to the championship game.
Those are going to
But
be some fun games with the Lions and Packers next season. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, but that's what I mean. Like I said, I don't get shocked with the Chiefs either. And the worst thing they could have done is say that, we got to see Patrick Mahomes try to win on the road when he's always won at Arrowhead. that sealed the deal. Like, you don't tell a Patrick Mahomes that, because he is going to show you that he can do it.
Which is what I thought was impressive.
Yeah. And I want to say, but I think we're going to all be in agreement, and y'all can just tell me, but the least impressive team of the playoffs, I mean, I would be
Dallas.
shocked if you guys had anything different.
I'll just stop you right there. It's going to be Dallas. That was horrible. Not only did you
Dallas.
lose, you got
I'll give you
embarrassed.
I'll give you a clue. It starts with a C and it ends with an Cowboys.
Is it ever going to be our year, guys? Are we going to see it in our lifetime?
As soon as I invent that time machine.
Yeah. Got to pull
Bring
out the
back Jimmy
VHS tapes.
Johnson, right? Oh, well,
Yeah.
it took me a couple of weeks to get over that one. Still hurts to see it, but it
I
is what
won't
it
be
is.
over it. I won't be over it till the draft day, and then it kind of seems like we kind of reset in that April, and then
I really
we'll be.
thought Mike McCarthy was going to be gone, though. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I just feel like we need something. And unfortunately, he was that sacrifice. I think we need a young coach, like a LaFleur,
Well,
like a Shanahan.
the players need a different voice, because after 5 years and you don't make it to near a championship, the message doesn't change, and that's just statistically proven with college, professional, and it could be baseball, basketball, professional football. If if your team wins a championship, it had been done your head coach's first 3 years, and we've passed that. And now I just don't want this to turn into another 10 year of Garrett, thinking you're going to go against the odds, and it just is not going to happen unless you pull something out of your hat.
And it's just so monotonous, too. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the one good thing that we could say about the Cowboys in the last maybe 5-6 years or so is at least we're not an 8-8 team anymore. So there's that. But
Correct.
but in all honesty, like, if we're this excited, like, no, we couldn't say it this year, but if we're so excited just to get to the divisional round of the playoffs, like, we
Right.
haven't even seen a championship. It's like, yeah, we're always excited when we make the playoffs, but the team needs to be fired up. And I don't know what's broken, because as good as we've seen them be during multiple seasons, this one included, I mean, even going back to the Romo days during the Des Cottet era, like, those teams were like really good. But
Yeah.
what broke? And it's the same thing every season. It's almost like it's expected. And it's going to take a different leadership culture within this unit to really fire them up and change the dynamic. They need like a Dan Campbell or someone. I mean, that's what we need.
They do, and I mean, you can blame Jerry all you want, and I get that he creates culture around that place, but he's not on the field getting
But
these guys
he's in
motivated.
their ear. I mean, he's the first. What other manager, owner is interviewed first after a game?
Yeah, but does that really affect the locker room? I don't think it should. I mean, it's the same man who was there for the 3 Super Bowls, and it was because they had the voice of Jimmy firing them up. They need that type
Yeah,
of
but who
voice.
also fired Jimmy?
I think
Well,
that was
yeah,
pretty.
that could be a whole other topic.
Yeah, we don't have time for that this podcast.
You know what was exciting? Just to wrap that up on the Cowboys from my end, during the halftime of that game, did you see how fired Jimmy was? I was like, yes, put him on the field. Like, that's what we need.
That was
could
the
win
only
that
excitement
game.
I had in that game.
Exactly. That's why I had to point that out. That brought back a little nostalgia from the early 90s.
Yeah. I mean, I was ready to go put my pads on. I was ready to play.
Yeah, the man speaks the truth.
He does. Yep. And that's the fire he needs. I mean, think about McCarthy's probably halftime. It's okay, guys. We'll figure it out one at a time. Like, I just feel like he's so, like, you need someone that's, like, in your face and, like, doing what Jimmy Johnson did.
I would picture McCarthy being more of the coordinator type. I don't picture him motivating a locker room. Now, I'm not there, and I've heard some good interviews with him, like on the ticket. Like, he's a personal guy and a nice guy, but
they're all
I
nice.
just I just can't in my mind picture him like putting the fear of God in someone to. I really need to put 110% out here and focus, and I just don't see that. But
yeah,
that's
almost like everyone gets an orange slice at halftime. We're all going to be buddies here. Just do your best. That'll work out. No, we do need some. I think that's the only thing we can point out is that the lack of intensity and focus, especially on the big stage with the Cowboys or against big teams too. I mean, you can look at our regular season record on that. 49ers could have something to say about that as well.
No
Yeah.
offense, Mike, if you're listening.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. It was fun. At least, like I said, it was good football, no matter what. Some head scratchers, but I enjoyed it. And here we are, Super Bowl. We'll get the Pro Bowl, which is now flag football, dodgeball, whole different type of Pro Bowl, which I think is actually more entertaining. So I enjoy it. But we'll see the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. And then hopefully I have you guys on this time next year. And we're talking about the Cowboys headed to New Orleans. Sound good?
No, that sounds great. I hope so too.
I'm going to pencil that in. Cowboys.
That's a good call.
All right. Thanks for coming on, guys.
All right. Thanks, Lacey.
Thank you. See you, Lacey.